Good morning. I too am delighted to be able to speak in this bill here today. And while it's very loose, it's very, very weak again, and unfortunately, it's not doing what it says in the tin, or what it's meant to do. It says in the tin. You need to get that opener for the tin and open it, because the fruit inside will. You know what happens if it's left too long; it goes out of date. So we're stale. And mention was made earlier. First of all, about the former Minister for Transport, Deputy Ross, who I fought with tirelessly in regards road issues, but I supported him in the JAB bill that he was trying to bring forward. I think, as Deputy O'Callaghan mentioned, that political shenanigans in the last government stopped it. There was no appetite for it. He did his best. I salute him from the highest amount of work he put into it, and he's written about it before he came in here, and he promised people he did his best, and more than his best, but it wasn't to be, because the political masters of the day, unfortunately, and no disrespect to you or the Cathaoirleach or anyone else that has served at the bar or solicitor or legal level or whatever, a lot of good, very, very, very good people. But there is a huge job in shifting the balance from across the river to here. Power supposed to lie here, and unfortunately, across the river, the power seems to rest. And goodness, we've seen that in many cases. Most recently was with the so-called very poorly named Golfgate. Not that there was a lot of media interest in that, and kind of a circus really, but that was a superficial war dance. A lot of serious issues. A lot of families very hurt by the justice system in our system here in this country, and it hasn't served us well. And this bill, as I said, we've been there's been the joint committee's report set about 10 recommendations in relation to the bill. A number of the changes have been made for the general scheme following the PLS process and subsequent recommendations of the joint committee. However, certain concerns remain regarding the role of the AG and the fact that the recommended candidates are not ranked in order of merit. You're going to pick the 3 candidates and send the 3 candidates forward, this so-called commissioner, but there's no ranking. There's no ranking. So it's going to give the Minister of the day the political choice that he or she wants. Simple as it is. That's what it is. And that's what's going to happen. 3 names will go up with no... and I have some form and some experience here of discussing these issues with Minister for Justice. When I had a very, very strange court case myself, which I was cleared by a jury of my own peers in County Tipperary, thankfully, after spending huge time. And I thank the jury, and I thank all the legal people there as well. And to come back and meet the Minister and be very frustrated after the court case, not before, and to be told that he didn't appoint, he just got a bit of paper from the teacher, appoint that man, or this person. That's the way it works. It stinks from my heaven, and has for a long time. And it must be cleaned out, and it must be, don't mean it in any order, perhaps it's wrong. It's wrong. I could give you countless cases here in Tipperary, Waterford, that justice hasn't been served for ordinary citizens, by a long shot. And Deputy Collins mentioned the Master of the High Court, Ed Honan, who did come in and did a briefing for any deputy or senator that wanted last Tuesday evening here, and gave a wonderful briefing, and he gave us a huge help. He actually drafted a bill on impaired farm loans. As other deputies, I want to acknowledge here, and Senator David Norris and Deputy John McGuinness and others did their best in this area previously. So, I mean, and it's not a fact that a very humble, very decent, very upright, a very respectful man of the people who stood before him, that the justice system is meant to serve. And anyone who stood before him in those chambers were treated with dignity, respect, utmost of decorum, and indeed they were really treated fairly and made feel human. Because the system in many courts, and I've been at many of them, with distraught families, they're not very humane. In fact, and they got less humane or more inhumane during COVID. Justice denied, delayed is justice denied. People were locked out of court cases. And what has happened, businessmen and farm families up and down the country, has been nothing short of torture chamber. Torture chamber. And some members of the judiciary didn't, they have no halos in their head after what they did. And we've seen it before, where massive amounts of money have been written off by banks for certain individuals. And how do they expect it to sit? And they sit on a case then, instead of absenting themselves and saying, I can't really hear, I have vested interest, I had a vested interest, I had an investment with this bank. Sure, God, it wouldn't happen out under Putin. It wouldn't. And as awful as that man is, it wouldn't.
Related to the bill.
I am, of course, related to the bill. So this is supposed to be a reforming bill. Thank you for your advice, Chair. I am, of course, referring to the bill. And I'm referring to the serious anomalies, as I said. We're going to have no lay chair. Major, major flaw. What have you got against the lay people? What have you got against them? Everyone is entitled to their intellect and entitled to their, their sense of respect, and they can bring a different perspective to the table. But no, the legal leagues want it. We're going to have the AG will going to be there in an advisory capacity, the most high officer in the land. We've seen some decisions quite recently happening, and the AG was scratching his head, really, what happened. But his office was there, nothing personal against the AG. So there's going to be 4 and 4 then. A divide of 4, and the legal leagues are going to win out again, the legal people, because there's no lay chair. Major fundamental flaw, major design architecture to ensure that this bill won't reform, won't do what it's supposed to say in the tin, won't do what people are waiting for, won't do anything like the former Minister Ross, who I again salute the efforts he made to tidy up the situation and bring some sense of normality and fairness to the process. And Minister, I've nothing, no respect for you at all, but Minister Judicial was probably here at an earlier stage. I probably was yesterday evening. I'm not sure, but I suspect she was. But you left here. I know that you have some skin in the game. You're a qualified barrister. And fair dues to you, and nothing against that. But, I mean, every debate that comes in here, when it comes to our groups, the smaller groups, the ministers are gone like a cat out to a skylight. You think there's someone after them with a pellet gun. You can't do that, it's your animal cruelty, but that's the way it happens here, just gone. And it's patently insulting and downright patently disrespecting the electorate that's in us up here. The rural independent, my colleagues and myself, and other smaller groups as well. Happens all the time. Surely you can organise a structure that if the minister's to leave and there's a second day that someone can come back for a while to listen to our views. Our views aren't weird or off the wall at all. Our voice and the voice that the people put us here has to be heard also. As I said, the 3 names then will be recommended. I've sat in many an interview board, many, as a voluntary board member of school now a national school. I was on a VEC school freshman, and there's always a ranking system. You were trying to get the best person. The group that were there and the interview panel, we always had, or in the secondary level definitely, always an education inspector, and they were very good. They gave sound advice. And many times in my situation, we had 2 wonderful retired sisters of the Mercy Order, who were brilliant in their knowledge and in-depth line of questioning and line of advice for us lay people. I was chair many times, and I wouldn't have been able to do without the expert advice of those people. So, and we recommended in the order of because if the first person that recommended for some reason or other couldn't get off from the school they were, couldn't take up the job, you always had to. But you put 1, a hen, a doe, a 3, a cow. But here, no. 3 names, handed to the Secretary General into the Minister's Department. He's pushing and shoving in cabinet and whatever, and a nod and a wink, and the one that's the political appointee gets the job all the time. Plain and simple. If it looks like a duck, walks like a duck, it is a duck. So this bill isn't going to change that 1 iota. So you're playing, but I was so long waiting for it, as I said. And we talk about, the juntas in Africa and different countries. We fought here and got our freedom, and got our democracy, and got the court legal system. And it hasn't served us well. It has in the main. But I can count as family. I can mention Tom Kennedy's family in Tipperary. A appalling vista of abuse. I can mention Mr. Kieran Hartley at present, what's going on in Waterford Court, where the witnesses were locked out of the court. I can mention my own case, if I want to, but I won't do that. But thankfully, the jury saw through that, what's going on. Totally political, scandalously political. And that's what's going on up and down this country. And that's what needs to be tackled. And that's what former Minister Ross was trying to tackle. In fairness to him, as I said, I fought with him on transport issues and many other issues with rural Ireland, but I'm that kind of person. I deal with issues as they come before me. And above all, I like to be straight and honest and support issues if I can, and if I can't, point out the flaws in them. So as I said, this has a lot of failures, a lot of inadequacies. And the main one is na Trier and Rinka, where they'd been a white envelope or a piece of paper that slipped in. No ranking. That's not an interview process. Interview process is meant to pick out the best person of the class before you, of the 8 or whatever comes before you, or the 100 someone mentioned. Pick the best person to apply to do the job. In the opinion of the 8 people that are in, with the advice of the AG, there's plenty of advice in the room, and the Chief Justice, I think, is in the room. Is it Chief Justice is the chair? Is it? Maybe I stand wrong there, but there's plenty of advice from legal side. So why won't you allow a lay chair? He's not going to be Mattie McGrath, come in and run amok and wreck the place. We respect the lady. Mullen Oireachtas or Chucky Sheed. Mullen Nadina or Chucky Sheed. Give people of valuable experience. Not NGOs now, mind. Because I'm shocked when I find out that we have 36,000 NGOs now. Costing almost 5.5 billion annually. So I want ordinary, true lay people. People of the country. People that are there and ordinary people that have lived their lives, that have raised their family like any normal person. And they have a lot to offer. And many of them have done tremendous work. And most of them do. Voluntary organisations up and down the country. Not this whole big nits cast out to NGOs. If you're not an NGO now, you're nobody. So we need to re-evaluate that system also. And that's not on the euro. It's not included in this bill. And I won't risk that, as I said. But there was, oh yeah, Greco. Was it Greco or Greco? Several times have criticised what's going on and the delay and the inaction and the kind of obfuscation that went on when Minister Ross was trying to, sure I'm around and I have ears to God, Cloushagum. I can hear what's going on. I could hear it going on in different parts of this, outside this chamber, but in the building. No, we'll make sure this is buried. And it was buried. All he didn't have was the funeral and the prayer service, but it was buried because it wasn't wanted. It wasn't because of who Mr. Ross was, or former Minister Ross. It was because it was unpalatable, Trastna on Owen, across the river. And we need a seismic shift here. And I'm looking at the chair here, and I shouldn't comment on the chair, I'm looking at Sinn Féin, who are chomping at the bit to get into power. And the many promises they have made. And I live in hope and wait and see. The system is so cumbersome now. It's going to take a fair lot of courage, dedication to change it. Because the senior civil servants, the very senior ones, we see with Mr. Watt and others, and senior officialdom, threw in some NGOs and the whole cabal that's there, you need a jackhammer. You need a pickaxe to get their hands off the handlebars of power and give a small bit of it back to the people and back to this House. We have token power here. Token power. We saw that the way this House acted during COVID. We saw that any legislation was passed, and we saw how we could include the hearsay legislation inside an emergency legislation for health, for a pandemic. That was the biggest joke of all time. There wasn't a word from any of the major parties here. Not a word, including the main opposition party. You can put that in. I see the clock and I'm going to finish. Not a word. That was the boldest, most audacity. But you think you can do what you like with the people and the people in here as well, when you can include that hearsay legislation, which is devastating to allow evidence of hearsay. Dúirt Banlum, got Gurt and Leahy, go raibh Farah Tipper and will poke and Elena again. That's what hearsay is.
Chair.
Yes, I finished. But this is useless, toothless and fruitless. Good morning.